So the first domino has dropped. We talked about it last week. It happened over the weekend. We've talked about it on this channel already, but we're going to dive knee deep into the Rams-Lions trade. And I'm just going to tell you something because I've heard this over and over again over the weekend and even a little today. A lot of lies are being perpetuated here. And I'm just going to tell you, don't let them lie to you. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 135th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Fresh out of the gym. I didn't even get to take off my wristbands. I literally just walked in. And so jumping right behind the mic and getting to the shits on this beautiful Monday afternoon. Man, the scenery outside is so lovely. I was driving back. Really, I was driving to the gym. And where I live, there are just a ton of trees. I mean, on both sides of the road, it's a winding road. It's wide open. And when it's, springtime, it's summer, and it's beautiful, it's green, it's lush, it's awesome to look at. Same thing for the fall when the leaves are turning red and orange and yellow, and there's all these beautiful colors, and it's great. I'm not even a nature guy, but it's beautiful. It is really a sight to behold. And driving down the road today and just seeing all of the white, because we got snow over the weekend, and we got roughly about 4.5 inches or so. And it's just all these trees, most of them bare, some of them not. All of it is covered in white. And the rooftops are white and all this white. And it's just gorgeous to look at. I went to Lowe's. I went to Dick's Sporting Goods. I went to go get me a sled. I'm a big kid. For those of you that don't know, I am a big ass kid trapped in an adult body. So I love amusement parks. I love roller coasters. I like doing fun things because I'm a big ass kid. And so I went to try to get me a sled on Saturday night when I knew the snow was coming on, Saturday afternoon actually. And I'm thinking somebody's going to have a sled. So I go to Lowe's. They don't have any sled. I went to 2 Lowe's and a Dick's. I just gave up. Nobody had a sled. I guess everybody had the same idea that I had. But I'm going to get me a sled because I realized being a little further north, we're going to get snow more often, and there are a bunch of places for me to get on the sled, one of these toboggans, and head down a hill and have some fun. So I'm looking forward to it. So I just needed to start with that. But this weekend was crazy. It was the first domino as we shift gears and talk about the trade and the offseason and the quarterbacks. We've talked so much about the quarterback position, and we've talked about all these dominoes, and I told you the Stafford domino was going to be the first to fall, and I said, hey, as soon as the Senior Bowl is over, look for that first domino, the Stafford trade, to take place. Again, I didn't anticipate it being literally like 4 hours after the Senior Bowl was done. I didn't think it was going to be that fast, but I said, look for this thing to be at some point early in the week. Well, they got it done Saturday night. We talked about it ad nauseum. You've heard the talking heads today talk more about it. But what was so fascinating for me, and you know what? That's going to be where we start our gem dropping session. So before I even get into all of that, let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So I found so many different facets of this trade just intriguing, truly fascinating. First of all, I love to pat myself on the back when I'm right. So I got to tell you, what did I say about Jared Goff? What did I tell you? I said, man, I'm telling you, the last time I heard a GM step up to a mic and say, this guy is a player for X said team for now, that guy was traded not too far thereafter. Talked about Steve Keim, and I talked about Josh Rosen, and I said the last time I heard this, you guys, Jared Goff is good as gone if they can find someone that is willing to take on that contract. And it's not a terrible contract, as I laid out for you. It's not a terrible contract. It's just a terrible contract if you don't love Jared Goff. That said, I said, Goff is as good as gone. If they can find someone to take him off their hands, they want out of the Jared Goff business. They are not attaching themselves to him. Sean McVay didn't do it in the playoffs and even after the playoffs. And Les Snead wasn't doing it. And he was talking about beautiful mysteries and all of this bullshit. I'm like, oh yeah, they trying to get rid of his ass. I didn't know it was going to come in the form of a Matthew Stafford trade, however. That was a little bit of a surprise to me. But nonetheless, the part that I found laughable, honestly, in all of this. Let me start by saying this. The Rams haven't lied to us once in this entire process. They haven't tried to pull the wool over our eyes or anything. The Rams told us pretty much with their actions and damn near with their words, we don't want Jared Goff anymore. Okay, they never once, McVay, Les Snead, none of these guys ever lied to us in this whole process. They were trying to get out of the Jared Goff business. They were trying to get into the John Wolford business during the playoffs. They'd already made their decision already. I mean, this man literally laid motionless on the field at Seattle, and head coach Sean McVay was still non-committal after Jared Goff went out and led them to a playoff victory with a broken hand that he had just gotten a couple of splints put into and a couple of whatever the hell they put in these your bones to fuse them together. And this man went out and gutted it out for him. And McVay could care less. So they didn't lie to us at any point in this process. They wanted to upgrade the quarterback position, and they were willing to do whatever it took to do it. The liars here have been the Detroit Lions. And they are lying through their teeth. And I don't blame them for any of it. But I love the way they're manipulating the media, because they understand those guys are conduits, okay? They know that if they want this message out there to the masses, the best way is to give Mike Silver, an interview, and he had a long piece on NFL.com about Jared Goff and how he got a phone call from Sean McVay saying, hey, buddy, we're going to trade you to the Lions. And Jared was like, okay. And he hung up the phone. Like, this man is in Cabo. Sean McVay he's a G, first of all. He's in Cabo. He picks up the phone. Hey, we trading you to, hey, y'all keep it down, man. Shh. Hey, yeah, can you get me another one of those pina coladas? Thanks. Hey, yeah, hey, Matt, we trading you to the Lions, man. Enjoy the rest of your offseason. Click up. Like, this dude is an OG, savage, right? But Goff on the other line is his dad. He clicks over. He talks to his dad. His dad is pissed off. He wants to call up the Rams organization. And at the end of the day, the Rams were done. They had washed their hands clean. But the Lions, on the other hand, they're trying to convince anybody that will listen, no, we really wanted Jared Goff. And they're out here telling Mike Silver, and they're out here telling Mike Garafolo and Ian Rappaport and all these guys that they want to carry out this false narrative. We really wanted Jared Goff. Okay, this is not some throwaway guy in this deal. This is not some salary dump by the Rams. We really want Jared Goff. Oh, okay, cool. Whatever. Hey, whatever you got to say, because Goff was feeling some type of way. And he's talking about how, he felt like they didn't want him in Los Angeles, and now it feels good to finally be wanted. Well, no, the Rams wanted you. They traded up in the draft to get you once upon a time. They wanted you. They didn't want you anymore. And now he's talking about how he feels good to be somewhere where he's wanted. The Lions didn't want your ass. Don't let them he said, I heard the pure excitement and joy in their voices when they were talking. How else are they supposed to sound? Hey, Jared, yeah, man, we're glad to have you on board. No, we didn't really want you, but we didn't have a choice. We wanted the 2 first rounders more, so we had to take you, but we're glad to have you on board, man. Welcome to Detroit. Like, what are they supposed to sound like? They're going to be jovial. They're going to be excited. They're supposed to. And they're selling this story to everybody about how he wasn't just some throw-in in the trade, and this isn't a salary dump. The Rams are like, oh, no, this was a salary dump. They're telling anybody that will listen, no. Trust me. We were dying for someone to take this Goff contract off our hands. And if it meant giving up 2 first rounders to get them to take the contract, what did I explain to you guys on that breakdown when we talked about the trade? I explained this was like a baseball deal. You know, I told you this was like a baseball deal where, yeah, you may have to give up a couple of big power arms in your farm system, but if you want to get rid of this bad deal you signed to this catcher 3 years ago, you know, and it's a 7-year deal, and you're really looking to get out of this thing because he's been abysmal for you, this is how you get out of that deal. If you signed a reliever to a deal that is absolutely crippling you, you don't want to give up the 2 power arms. They're number 2 and number 5 in your farm system. You don't have a choice. If this team says, hey, I'll take them, but you're going to have to give me something big here, man. I'm not going to just take this contract off your hands. I need something big here, man. Help me out. I'm helping you. You need to help me. That's what this was. The Rams are telling anybody that'll listen, yeah, this was a salary dump. We only wanted to give up 1 first rounder and a 3rd, but the extra first round was for them to take Jared Goff off our hands. It's true. Like, don't try to lie to me. Now, could Jared Goff actually be a part of the future in Detroit? Maybe. If he goes out and plays well, essentially, it's a 2-year contract. After 2 years, they can get out of the final 2 years of that deal. It has exit ramps. So, in all actuality, it's a 2-year audition for Jared Goff in Detroit. But here's the funny thing. You know, I'm listening to all these reporters for the NFL Network trying to convince everyone because sources are telling them that this isn't just a throw-in and this wasn't a salary dump. They really love Jared Goff, and there were multiple teams out here that were really interested in Jared Goff. I'm pretty sure there were. I guarantee you that at least 7 or 8 teams called the Rams and just wanted to know, hey, what is it going to take to get Jared Goff? They weren't necessarily legitimately offering anything. They just wanted to know, what are you looking for Jared Goff? That's it. Not necessarily someone dying to get Jared Goff off the Rams' hands, but there's some teams that probably were legitimately interested. But let's not go overboard and make it seem like, hey, we had to beat him to the punch to get Jared Goff. He wasn't the centerpiece of this trade. The Lions have to stop treating us as if this is 1993 and we don't know any better and we're just going to listen to what the media tells us. We know better, okay? We know better. We know better. This is 2021. We can see between and read between the lines. We can see and smell your bullshit, and it stings. We know better. Don't let them lie to you. They didn't want Jared Goff. They had to take him. And you know how they can really prove that they really wanted Jared Goff? Actions speak louder than words, okay? If you're so committed to him, listen to what head coach, kneecap-biting head coach Dan Campbell had to say. Look, man, if you're a fan of this Lions organization, the real football doesn't begin for us for 2 years. We need 2 years to tear this thing down and build it back up. Where the hell does that leave Jared Goff then? You think about what he just said. Think about what I just told you. The first 2 years of this deal, you have to eat, and then after that, you can get out of this thing. So he's telling you, hey, these first 2 years are throwaway years. Well, what the hell does that mean for Jared Goff? So you're telling me that you're going to take a guy that you truly believe in, and he's going to be here. Remember what one of those executives said to Josina Anderson, and I read that tweet to you, and it was something along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing here, that they definitely took Jared Goff on, and they wouldn't have done it because it's a bad contract on a team that's rebuilding, and when it's finally rebuilt, he's not going to be a part of your football team. So it's a bad deal for the Lions, okay? If Dan Campbell is telling you, hey, this thing isn't going to be ready to actually look like a professional outfit for 2 years. So don't mind us while we're over here fixing some shit. We're just over here, fresh coat of paint. We're stripping stuff down. We're going to redo the floors in the kitchen, new countertops. We're going to go upstairs. We're going to rip out the carpet. We're going to lay some new carpet down. We're going to change the bathroom around. We're going to knock out that wall. We're going to put in a big hot tub. Like, they're doing all kinds of renovations in Detroit. And what they're saying is, when it's all done, Jared Goff won't be here. So if you really are that committed to him, why are you telling us that the first 2 years don't matter? What I'm really anxious to see, and this is how we'll really know. Maybe they are committed to Jared Goff. Maybe they aren't lying to us. I think they're lying through their teeth. I believe the Rams. The Rams haven't lied to me yet, and I think they are truthful. And it just doesn't make any others. It doesn't make sense. When you try to sit down and make sense of this deal, it doesn't make sense. Just like with the Deshaun Watson situation, when everybody's trying to throw in all these veterans and these guys that the Texans don't want any parts of. And I explained to you before this even became a real thing, I explained to you, they don't want your funky ass contracts that you've signed these players to that you no longer want. They don't want these veteran players that you no longer want. They want a guy. We talked about all the draft capital that the Texans don't have. We talked about all the cap space that the Texans don't have. Well, guess what? If all of that is true, and we know it's true, then why in the hell would they want to take on your veteran contract? Why would they want to take on your veteran salary that you signed this guy to? We want guys with upside. We want guys on rookie deals because they're cost effective. And we want draft capital. We don't. That's why trading with, if I'm Houston, the only team I want a quarterback back from in exchange would be the Jets or the Dolphins. Anybody else out there, I don't want your quarterback because he's not on a rookie deal. More likely than not. You're not trading me a guy that's on a rookie deal. And the Dolphins aren't trading to it. So we can put that to bed right now. That's a dead issue. I'm not even talking about that anymore because that's not happening. They didn't draft Tua last year to just trade him this year. However, back to the Detroit Lions. Actions speak louder than words. You know what I'm really looking forward to now? Is what they do at number 7. Because that'll tell me all I need to know. If Jared Goff gets blindsided on draft night day 1 with the Lions selecting a quarterback at 7, then you'll know they lied to you, buddy. They lied to you to your face. Bold-faced lie. Told you how excited they were. Told you that you were the guy for them. Told you that, you were a huge part. You were the centerpiece of this trade. Told you that we were going to rebuild around you. And now they're drafting a young guy that they're grooming behind you so that when your 2 years are up and they can get out of that contract, they'll be ready to start the young fella after you've taken all the lumps. It'll be interesting. I'm fascinated by that whole situation because if they don't draft a quarterback at any point of the draft, first, second, third day, doesn't matter. If they don't draft a quarterback, then I'll say, okay, well, maybe, just maybe, they actually do believe Jared Goff is the guy. But if they still take a quarterback at 7, I'm going to say, Jared, my guy. Got your ass, Mr. Goff, man. They got you. They got you. Hook, line, and sinker. They reeled your ass in only to let you know, hey, you a stopgap, bro. You're in a very expensive stopgap. So don't let them lie to you, man. The Lions are over here doing some real sinister, dirty dick dastardly stuff over here behind people's backs. We're not dumb. Again, I'm not falling for your shenanigans. No banana in the tailpipe action over here. And I'm going to make sure I explain to y'all out there so y'all don't get caught off guard. Don't let them lie to you, okay? The Rams haven't lied to us yet. They dumped Goff. They wanted out of the golf business. And they're telling you, hey, no, trust me. They didn't want Jared Goff. If we would have let them get away with the 2 1s and the 3, they would have got away scot-free with the 2 1s and the 3. But they had to take Jared Goff. And so, yeah, I'm really fascinated with that situation. I want to see what they do. See how they built this roster. See what moves they make. Because all the steps that they take now after this deal will tell us all we need to know. Again, actions speak louder than words. They can give us lip service all day long. What they ultimately do with free agency and the draft will really help us kind of sort things out in Detroit and what direction they're going in. So I just find that very interesting. We've talked about this trade already a ton, so I don't need to bore you anymore. You've been probably listening to a ton of trade talk. Stafford, what team wanted. We already did all of that stuff, so we don't need to do that again here. But I thought that was the thing that I found really interesting. Ian Rappaport and Garofolo and all those guys really trying to sell us. All these NFL Network guys, the Detroit Lions are using them as conduits, telling them profusely, hey, we really wanted Jared Goff. He was a huge part of this deal. He wasn't just some throw-in. Okay, cool. I hear you. I don't believe you, but I hear you. That's fine. Gotcha. Let's switch gears though. And let's go to in case you missed it. But before we do that, I do have a super chat. I want to take that real quick before it goes away. And this one is from Vincent Cole. Thank you for the super chat, Vincent Cole. Greatly appreciate you. My man Vincent Cole writes, what do you think about Hawks' new OC from the Rams? I can't tell you anything about him. Only thing I can tell you is that he was under Sean McVay, and he's probably going to be coming with some form of zone run blocking, heavy influence on the run to get to play action fake. If he has the same frame of mind as Sean McVay, all of those guys come from the Shanahan school of offense. So think of Gary Kubiak, think of Mike Shanahan, think of Kyle Shanahan, think of who's the coach in Cleveland right now? Kevin Stefanski. Think of Sean McVay. Think about how those offenses look. All right, run, get you to respect the run, come up, 15-yard dig behind your linebackers. Think about that kind of stuff. Run. Now you're trying to come up the field and be aggressive, stopping the run. Here comes a screen. Wide receiver screen out into out on the perimeter and get you guys stretched out. Like, that's what you should be expecting. You know, the Browns, the Vikings, the Rams are some of the best running back screen teams in the league. So look for those things to start to become a bigger part of your offense. And this is the assumption that I gotta make, I don't know this guy's philosophy. He could have a totally different philosophy from that of Sean McVay. If he is an apple falling from the Sean McVay tree, then that's what you should be looking for. If not, then I can't tell you anything about it. All right, so let's get to in case you missed it. JJ Watt could be on the block. You interested? I think I asked this before. I'm going to ask it again because it seems more realistic now. You know, that the first domino has dropped, which was Matthew Stafford being traded. It seems like JJ Watt may have played his last down in Houston. It feels like a rebuild of sorts in Houston, and it should be. I mean, honestly, Bill O'Brien and company really tore that organization down to its core, essentially. It stripped it down to its bare essentials. And so they've really got a hell of a task in front of them. And they've probably extracted all they can get out of JJ Watt at this point of his career. And he can still help somebody. He can't help them. You know, he can't single-handedly strap that defense to his back and will them to victories. We saw that last year. He wasn't good enough on a defense that wasn't any good. You know, so he can help a good defense. He can help a team that is right there. You know, I've heard the Browns being tossed about as a team that would be really intriguing. That's the kind of team he needs to go to. Somewhere like that, where they're a contender and their defense is okay. It's not great. Maybe he helps push them over the top. But are you interested in JJ Watt? I think he's done in Houston, personally. Again, this is when, you know, people keep talking about, well, the Deshaun Watson thing is going to really be perpetuated by the fact that they don't have any draft capital or cap space. No, they knew they weren't going to have draft capital or cap space. They knew there were issues with both of those. And Deshaun Watson was a part of the future with all of those problems ailing them. Okay? He was never the solution to get out of that. So they're not looking to move him just because they don't have any cap space and they don't have any draft capital. He was supposed to be able to help them survive not having those things. They're not looking to get those things at the expense of trading Deshaun Watson. But what they are looking to do potentially is help alleviate some of that by getting rid of JJ Watt. They could use his cap space. They could use some draft capital from trading him. So I do think he is a guy that could be potentially out of there. So are you interested? That's the real question. You know, how interested are you guys out there with, you know, JJ Watt at this point of his career? In case you missed it, we've been talking about the Rams, right? And I told you they never lied to us. And we said that they've been trying to get out of the golf business for about the last, 3 weeks or so. You know, once the season was done, they really knew they weren't going to have Jared Goff back in 2021. But they called the Packers about Aaron Rodgers. I remember Sean McVay, and they were mic'd. They had everybody mic'd up during the postseason once we got to the championship weekend. Or excuse me, the conference round. They had just about every team mic'd up at that point. And at the end of that game, Jared Goff goes up to Aaron Rodgers and he says, man, it's so much fun to watch you play the quarterback position. Watching you play the quarterback position is like watching a game in slow motion. Like, he was drooling all over Aaron Rodgers. And, you know, they're not dumb. They saw the way the Green Bay Packers season ended, and they knew that there was a chance, albeit a small one. They knew it was a chance that maybe Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to be back. I told you there's no way they're not running it back one more time. This is it, though. You know, this feels like the last dance. This feels like Jerry Krause telling Phil Jackson, this is it. I don't care if you go 82-0. This is your last year. You're done after this. This feels like that in Green Bay. They're not necessarily being overtly, you know, demonstrative about Aaron's last year, but this feels like it. You know, you can start to see the cracks, you know, in the communication between Rodgers and the organization. They're not dumb, though. Even Rodgers understands that this is probably his best opportunity to win a chip. And I don't know where he'll end up, but he's probably not going to end up in a better situation than Green Bay. So he wants to win. They want to win. It's a mutual situation. So I see him running it back. But Sean was like, hey, Les, trade a Les. You the guy, right? You make shit happen. Hey, call up Green Bay and see what it'll take, man. Just see if they're interested. They may not even feel like fielding offers, but just see what they're talking about. The Rams, I'm telling you, man, one thing I can say about Sean McVay and Les Snead is that those boys will go after it. And I'm going to tell you right now, that whole Stafford deal, this is the type of thing that if you don't win a Super Bowl, heads might roll. Not necessarily Sean McVay. I don't think he's getting fired. But Les Snead could. Les Snead could. If they don't win a Super Bowl, I don't know if anybody gets fired. Let me start by saying this. But this feels like, hey, you better win. This Stafford move, you traded. We've talked about this already. And what we didn't, somebody had cleaned it up for us at the end of the trade stream on Saturday night when the trade first went down. And it was a long one. And for those of you that were there for the duration of that thing, big ups. Because I didn't expect it to go 230 plus, but it did. But that said, somebody at the end was like, yo, you know Jacksonville still has this 2021 first rounder, right? And I'm like, you sure? They haven't already recouped both of those first rounders? I know it was two of them for Jalen Ramsey. They haven't gotten both of them yet? And damn sure enough, they got the 2020, and now they're getting the 2021 is Jacksonville. So now that these first round picks are 2022 and 2023, and the third rounder is from 2021, and I'm like, well, damn, that's 7 years. And I've talked about this before they made this trade a long time ago. I've been talking about the Rams don't value first round picks like most teams in the league. They haven't had a first round pick since Jared Goff was selected back in 2016. And I kept harping on it. They don't care about first round picks. They care about winning now. They ain't worried about the future. We'll figure it out. We'll draft really well in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round. We'll figure all that stuff out. Let's just worry about trying to win now. And they have. And this feels like another one of those moves. Hey, we anteing it up. We pushing our chips to the center of the table. You better get something done here then. This feels like, hey, you better win. But they went after Aaron Rodgers, man. To hell with Matthew Stafford. They went after Aaron effing Rodgers first. And got shut down and said, all right, let's see what we can do in terms of getting Matthew Stafford. So I just found that very interesting. In case you missed that. In case you missed it. Last thing on this Lions-Rams whole situation. This is a different, separate issue, but still really fascinating stuff to hear. Matthew Stafford told the Detroit Lions, and before I even get into it, he was a big part of why he went to L.A. You know, I told you there was no animosity between the Detroit organization and Matthew Stafford. This was a ceremonious split. This was two parties coming together and feeling like this was beneficial for both parties to just go their separate ways. And they wanted to do right by Matthew Stafford. He wanted to go out west. He wanted to go to San Francisco, or he wanted to go to L.A. And the 49ers was like, hey, we can't help you. You trying to get us to take Goff? We trying to get out of Jimmy's contract. You trying to give us Jared Goff's contract? Oh, hell no. No. And I got it all mixed up. They were looking at Stafford, and they probably wanted to give up just a 1. I don't know if they wanted to give up a 1 and a 3, or if they wanted to give up 2 1s or whatever. I don't know how it was posed to them, but they didn't seem to make an offer. If you are going to take Peter, I think it was Peter King's word at face value. One of those dudes, Albert Breer, one of those guys on SI, had pretty much laid out, I think it was Albert Breer on his podcast, that laid out all the different offers that the Lions received for Stafford. And Washington was a first and a third. I think Carolina was a first and a third, or a first and like a late round pick, like a first or a fifth or something like that. And I think that you had a couple more teams call, but never actually put together a package. And the Rams, obviously, with the 2 first rounders, were head and shoulders above everyone else, and they were willing to take Jared Goff off of their hands. But when you go back to the Lions for a second, and Stafford, he said, look, you can send me anywhere you want in the league. I'll go, except New England. I'm not going there. Oh, if he said that, and I don't doubt it, if he said that, he's such a thug. Oh, I love me some Matthew Stafford even more. If he said that. Because most people don't actually verbalize. Nobody wants to go to New England, unless you're desperate to win and you don't care at all costs, whatever. But if you're in control of your own outcome and you can say, hey, this is what I want to do, most people don't say, don't send me to New England. But there's actually some history there, because Matt Patricia, I always told you, you can always go home. It's always funny because you don't burn bridges in this league, because you never know when you're going to have to go home. And as soon as Matt Patricia got fired, I said, he'll be back in New England. They'll create a position for him. And they did. And he's back in New England. And I don't think him and Matthew Stafford got along at all. Matthew Stafford was so excited when they fired Matt Patricia and Darren Bevel took over. Remember, Darren Bevel, he was the guy that Stafford wanted them to keep as the offensive coordinator. And had they kept him, remember, he was the interim head coach. Had they kept him, Stafford would have been a little bit open to staying. I talked about the same thing with Jim Bob Cooter when they had gotten rid of Jim Caldwell. Jim Bob Cooter was the offensive coordinator. Stafford was like, not again. Are we really doing this again? And they brought in Matt Patricia, and he was like, look, I'll stay. I won't make any noise, but we got to at least keep Jim Bob Cooter, man. And they did for 1 year, and then they got rid of him. So he was so happy. You could tell. There was a different air about him and that entire team. It was almost comparable, and it's not that dissimilar, honestly, and it's not coincidental. Both of these guys came from New England. That the Texans, it was like a sigh of relief when Bill O'Brien was gone. He was like a dictator, and he was running it like a dictatorship. It was the same thing in Detroit. And it was like, oh man, finally the slave master is gone. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it felt. He was always cracking the whip. Nobody else's opinion mattered. And it was the same thing in Houston when Bill O'Brien, you heard players speak out once he was finally canned. Like, this was the worst, and they both came from New England. It's not coincidental. And so he's back in New England. Stafford's like, I don't want to be anywhere near that guy. I don't want to even be in the same building with that dude. And if he's a reflection and a true representation of what it's like to be in that building, I want no parts of that shit all over again. Because if he's just a piece of the apple, not the entire apple from the big apple tree, he's just a slice from an apple from the apple tree that is Bill Belichick. Oh, I don't even want to know what that building is like. Don't send me there. That's some thug stuff. I love it. And I like that New England's starting to get a rap too. F the Patriots from that standpoint. You know, you can't keep treating people the way that they've done it over the years and have people keep crawling back to them. People kept going there because of Brady. That's what I don't think people really realize how much influence Tom Brady had in that organization. They didn't do that shit because of the Patriot way or because of Bill Belichick. They went there because of Brady. Gronk was there because of Brady. Edelman and Danny Amendola and all those guys, they were there because of Brady. They didn't like Belichick. Nobody likes Belichick. They were there because of Tom Brady. You're seeing that now. Everybody wants out. Everybody wants out. And so it's nice to finally see them getting a taste of their own medicine. They deserve this. Got another, in case you missed it. I found this very interesting. And I don't know if you guys ran across this or not, but I'm going to lay this out for you. So there was this interesting tag and trade scenario posed by Adam Schefter for Dak Prescott in Dallas. And I never even considered this. You know, the entire offseason and even in the regular season, and really back to last offseason, I was like, there's no way Dak's leaving Dallas. That's always been my stance. That's still my stance to this day. And I'd be shocked if Dak Prescott plays football somewhere else next season. And really, furthermore, and seasons moving forward. I think he's a Dallas Cowboy through and through. That said, after looking at what the Lions just fetched for Matthew Stafford, and realizing that there is a legitimate possibility that Dak Prescott could walk in free agency if they can't come to some kind of agreement, and they realize they are in no position to really franchise tag. We talked about this already. I think if they were to franchise tag him, the number is something like 37 or 38 million. I actually went and looked it up. So it's somewhere in there. It's not as bad as I thought. I was saying 40, 41. No, it's something like 37, 38. Somewhere in there. I think it's more like 37 million. That's still too much money for one guy for 1 year. And the Dallas cap situation isn't set up for them to do that. I'm pretty sure if they needed to, they could make space if they had to do that again. But they don't want to do that again. That would require them to cut some guys and restructure some deals and things of that nature. I don't think they want to go down that road. Either way, what was proposed is that if the Cowboys see where this thing is going and they realize Dak is going to leave, unlike the dumb Washington football team that got nothing for Kirk Cousins and had ample opportunities to get something for him, and instead of a compensatory draft pick, don't talk to me about a damn third-round compensatory pick when you could have had a first-round pick from Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers. After seeing what the Lions just got for Stafford, the Cowboys could be inclined to say, you know what? We got no chance of re-signing Dak. This is not going the way that we intended. He's going to walk. I don't want a third-round compensatory pick for Dak Prescott. That's not good enough. We slapped the franchise tag. Now, Adam laid this out beautifully and said, look, by slapping the franchise tag on Dak, you essentially have given him all power, which he's already got all the power, which I've already explained to you guys. He's got the Cowboys by the nutsack. He's got them by the scrotum right now. And slapping the franchise tag does give Dallas a little bit of power, but not much. I mean, they've got zero power right now. Slapping the franchise tag on Dak gives them 5% power because it does give them an opportunity to recoup something for him, being that he's going to leave. That's the only reason they have any power, is that, hey, we're going to get something for him. That said, Dak has the ability, that franchise tag acts as essentially a no trade clause. Because if he doesn't sign, they can't trade him. He's got to agree to wherever they're trying to trade him. So if they slap the tag on him and he gets a call from Dallas, they call his agent and they say, hey, we got this awesome deal to trade you to the Bears. Bears are going to give us 2 first-round picks, and we want to ship you off to Chicago. And Dak's like, I don't want to play for the Bears. He doesn't have to sign the franchise tag. They can't trade him. So it's really interesting. They've got to essentially get permission from Dak to trade him wherever he wants to go. But in that same regard, because wherever he's going to go, you got to keep this in mind. He was going to sign a long-term contract there anyway. So it's essentially like an NBA sign and trade. You sign a guy and then you trade him, so you get something back in return. You're going to lose this guy. Well, let's get something on the way out. So I didn't think about that because this isn't the NBA and we don't see teams do this. They laid it out for us on ESPN. They said, hey, this has only happened 17 times in NFL history, but only once with a quarterback. And that was Matt Cassell back in like 07, 08. I think it was 08 when he was signed and traded to the Chiefs for a first rounder. Doesn't happen very often. Only 17 times and only once with a quarterback. But that's just something else to think about. Like, this offseason is so crazy and it's going to be so wild and aggressive at the quarterback position. That's just another scenario to kind of keep in mind. I found that really fascinating. I don't know if you guys were exposed to that, but I felt like I would drop that on your doorstep and kind of let you internalize all of that. Really interesting stuff. Anyway, finally, in case you missed it, Malcolm Jenkins was on the Rich Eisen show, and he was asked about Carson Wentz and what do you think went wrong with Wentz in the last regime, being Doug Peterson. And, one thing about Malcolm Jenkins throughout his career, he's been a good soundbite. Not a guy that holds or bites his tongue for anyone, says what's on his mind, how he feels. And so he usually doesn't evade or duck questions. He doesn't give politically correct answers. He gives you the reals. I love it. So Eisen asks, you were in Philadelphia for many years. You just left last year, went back to New Orleans. What do you think was the real issue in Philadelphia with Carson Wentz? And I was interested to see what he would say. And we've talked about this for a little while, not necessarily in this regard, but he said and I'm paraphrasing here. He didn't use the word coddled or anything like that, but that's essentially what he was describing, is that Carson Wentz was coddled in Philadelphia. He wasn't reprimanded for not doing the things that he was supposed to do. Remember, there was this report, and we talked about this, I want to say it was like a year, maybe a year and a half ago. Some random ass small, who's ever heard of this publication outlet put out this story about Wentz and how he wasn't a great teammate. And guys in the locker room weren't really a fan. And he had cliques, like he had guys that he was really, really close to, and everybody else to hell with him in the locker room. Like, those guys at that time were Zach Ertz. And he, another guy that he was really good friends with was the Vanderbilt wide receiver that they drafted. He's been around the league a bunch too. I can't remember his name, but it was a small group of guys that he was really, really tight with, and then really didn't associate with most of the other guys in the locker room. You can't do that as a quarterback. You got to be friends with everybody. Anyway. I remember a lot of people trying to crush that small publication, saying that these were unfounded, statements being made, and everybody was hiding behind anonymous sources and this, that, and the third. Well, nobody ever actually puts their name behind a statement that's detrimental to the team, So, and you could argue that, well, if you can't put a name, then it's not a real statement. Well, in that case, most of the stuff that we hear, we never would be able to put out in publication, and we wouldn't be able to say that it was real, because most of these things are an anonymous NFC executive, an anonymous player in the locker room, an anonymous coach, an anonymous source within the organization. How many times do we hear that? About 95% of the time when we hear an article and they're telling us something juicy, salacious, it's an anonymous source. It's someone in the organization. They're not going to put their name on it. They have a job to protect. Anyway, we talked about that, and I said, I think some of this stuff is true. But a lot of people tried to dismiss it. But then Doug Peterson came out and said, Wentz has to be a better teammate. And I'm like, well, if it's not true, then why would you say that? You're essentially acknowledging that things in that article had some validity to them. Anyway, we fast forward to Malcolm Jenkins on the Rich Eisen podcast. And he's talking about how Carson Wentz was allowed to get away with not getting better. How they never actually held him to the standard that they did the rest of the players in the locker room. That they went out of their way to coddle him and protect his ego. They never slapped him on the wrist when he didn't do the things he needed to. When he made mistakes, they pointed the blame at other players. They never squarely put it on the shoulders of Carson Wentz. And some of that, I told you guys, was this complex that he developed when in Philadelphia and having Nicholas Foles win the championship. It was the worst thing that could have happened to Carson Wentz. Because what it did was it fostered this environment where he felt like he had to prove himself all over again. Despite him having one of the best 11, 12 game starts to any season we've seen a quarterback have, and was well on his way to winning the MVP that season, and then he gets injured and Foles comes in and continues to steady the ship and then has an amazing run through the playoffs. Despite that, he felt like he could never win over the Philadelphia faithful without winning big himself, because he brought something to that city that no other quarterback, no other player had ever done, and that's bring a Super Bowl championship. And so he felt like and we talked about this on his podcast numerous times, but he tried to overcompensate and he made a bunch of mistakes. And Malcolm Jenkins said he was never punished. He was never reprimanded. He was never pulled to the side and said, hey, you can't do that. You can't sacrifice the team for personal gain. You have to make the plays that are there. You got to trust your teammates. And he said that was the problem with the last staff, is that they never checked Carson Wentz's ego. They always were walking on eggshells when it came to Carson Wentz. That's some powerful stuff, man. Because if that's true, and you know, the crazy part about all of that is that now looking at the situation, they chose a Super Bowl winning, they chose a quarterback that hasn't won a playoff game, that really, technically speaking, hasn't done jack shit over a Super Bowl winning, the only Super Bowl winning head coach in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history. They chose the quarterback over the coach. Generally in the NFL, that's not how this works. In the NBA, they always choose the player over the coach. Always. 1,000% of the time. Not 100, not 500, 1,000% of the time they choose player over coach, because you can always replace NBA coaches. Get another guy. Can't replace players in the NBA. In the NFL, it's 53 dudes, man. You're disposable for the most part. And Wentz hasn't proven that he's indisposable. He's not Tom Brady. Far from it. He's the antithesis of Tom Brady. Meanwhile, a guy that went, now I'm not a big Doug Peterson fan. I'm not sitting here trying to advocate for Doug Peterson. I am not a Doug Peterson fan. He's too smart for his own damn good. You know how I feel about Doug Peterson. That said, it seems like they're doing it again for Carson Wentz. It wasn't his fault that he struggled this year. It was Doug Peterson's fault. We got him the hell out of here. So we're going to bring in some guys that believe in Wentz, and we're going to show you that Wentz can actually play. Okay, we'll see. The Eagles are a mess. I love it. And, you know, let's just touch on that real quick. The Nick Sirianni press conference. Leave him alone, okay? He was nervous. Leave him alone. It's the equivalent of you in the 8th grade having a report that you had to read in front of the class. You had a presentation in science class with your little trifold poster board, and you had to glue a whole bunch of shit up there, and you had to go up there and explain how condensation works, and your heart is beating through your chest, and you're stumbling through words. He was nervous. The only thing that was funny was that Jeffrey Lurie stood up there for like 7 minutes talking about how great of a communicator this guy was, and then he gets up there and he's rambling and stumbling through his words. He was nervous. Leave him alone. Doesn't mean he's a terrible coach. You guys stop. I guarantee you, half of you, if you were put in front of the media and you knew questions were going to be, and you've never done it before. This guy's never been, fielding questions like this. And even if it was on a smaller scale. As an offensive coordinator, yeah, you get one press conference on a Wednesday with the local media. Woohoo, wow. He was nervous. It doesn't mean he's not a good NFL coach, okay? Stop. Was it funny? Sure. I didn't laugh. I didn't find it funny because I know it's human nature. It's life. It's how it goes sometimes. You're nervous as hell. But I did get a kick out of the fact that Jeffrey Lurie stood up there for like 7 minutes explaining how this guy was a great communicator. And then he gets up there and the message he's communicating was so botched. You're like, what the hell are you talking about, man? I want to simplify the offense, but yet have it be complex enough so that the defense can't. What are you talking about, man? You just said the same thing 15 times in a circle, but you're stammering and stuttering through it, and it just doesn't make any sense. He was nervous. Cut him a break. Anyway, I digress. Let's go ahead and wrap up the show with what I like to call garbage time. Before we get to garbage time, you know what I want to ask you guys to do. If you're out there, please go ahead and subscribe to Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also, it's 190 of you out there, only 40 likes. Please, please, please hit the like button. Show your man some love, man. Please like the video. All right. With that said, I got one thing I want to talk about as we leave this program, and we'll talk Super Bowl on Wednesday and Friday, so don't worry. We've got all week to talk about the Super Bowl. But I do want to go back to this trade. That's the big story, of Monday. I told you it was going to be. I told you you're going to hear about it from all the media outlets on, Saturday night and Sunday. But all the big media shows aren't, the ESPNs, the Fox Sports ones, they're not going to be able to get to it till Monday. So you're going to hear about this again on Monday. So I'm going to go ahead and say my last piece on this situation, and then we'll move on Wednesday. And I got a tweet from my man at Hawk_Kid94, my man Sean Hawk. All right. My man Hawk, who tweeted me and wrote, "Do you think the Stafford trade scared some teams away from getting Watson?" Good question. We talked about the ramifications of the Stafford trade and what this might mean for a Watson deal now. Like, wow, if the Lions got this for Stafford, what do you think the Texans are going to get for Watson if they ultimately decide to finally pull the trigger on the trade? And John McCain of the Houston Chronicle, who is as plugged in a beat reporter and beat writer for an NFL team as there is around the league. There are guys and gals out there, there are men and women who are just synonymous with specific organizations. You think of the Browns, I think of Mary Kay Cabot. She's plugged in. When she says something regarding the Browns, I listen, because 95% of the time she's spot on. She's plugged in. I think that percentage goes up to about 97, 98% when you're talking about John McClain and the Houston Texans. Like, this guy's as dialed in as any beat reporter around the league covering a team. I mean, he just gets it for the Texans. So when he says Stafford trade doesn't impact a potential Watson trade, Texans still want 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 young defensive starters. That's where they're sitting at right now. Could that change? You're damn right it could change. To me, that's where the discussion starts. They're not going to just say, hey, I got 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 young defensive players from this team, so I'm not listening to any other deals. No, you take that offer, you run it to somebody else, you say, hey, look, this is what they're offering. They're giving me 2 1s, 2 2s, They're giving me 2 really good young defensive players on rookie contracts. Can you beat that? Can you match it? You got something better? What do you got? You got 3 1s, 2 2s, and 2 defensive starters? Okay, I'll take that deal instead. Like, this doesn't have to be the deal, but this is the template right here. He's saying nothing has changed. If they decide to move Watson, they're still looking for 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 defensive starters. Young defensive starters, let me say that. Young is the pivotal word here because young implies I want them on rookie deals. I told you guys that from the jump. I told you guys that before this deal was even a thing, that they're going to want a guy on a rookie contract. And they're going to want a really good, they don't want your 5th round pick on a rookie deal. You know, I talked about this. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I've talked about this a million times about how everyone's trying to offer up some random guy that they don't want anymore, some aging veteran or some guy that they think is good, but they don't really want to pay that guy anymore, and they're trying to throw him into a deal with the Texans. They don't want your shit, okay? They don't want your garage and yard sale items. They're not looking for that. They don't want the shit that you're trying to get rid of. Hey, yeah, go put that outside on the front yard and put $5.99 on that. Yeah, they don't want that. They want the stuff that's in the house that you're not trying to sell. That's the stuff that they want. Hey, how much for that vase over there? That's not for sale. Well, then you don't want my money. That's the stuff that they want. They want the good stuff inside. They want the good merchandise. They don't want your stuff that's on the yard that you're trying to give away. Stop trying to throw that shit in the deal. They don't want it. So, I talked about this with somebody else. I said one of the biggest non-Lions and Rams ancillary takeaways is what this trade does for the Deshaun Watson market. That was, to me, the biggest ancillary non-Rams and Lions takeaway for me is, what does this do to the value of Deshaun Watson if Stafford is worth 2 1s and a 3? Well, listening to John McCain, it doesn't do anything. Now, I think that's false. I think it does do something to his value. Because if I'm the Texans and I see what they just fetched for 33-year-old Matthew Stafford, I'm saying I got 25-year-old Deshaun Watson. Are you crazy? I'm not just taking two 1s. The Lions just got 2 1s. I'm doing better than that. I'm treating this like a player negotiation contract where they say, hey, Derek Carr just got X amount of dollars. I'm better than Derek Carr. I should get X amount of dollars more than him. I've been to 3 Pro Bowls and I've been an all-pro in this league. I shouldn't be making comparable money to Derek Carr. I need more than that. That's how I would treat this. No different. Hey, that's Matthew Stafford. No disrespect to Matthew Stafford, but he doesn't even have a playoff win in his career. He's 33 years old. No, I got a 25-year-old stud that's on his way to being a Hall of Fame player. No. I don't get 2 1s like the Lions got for Matthew Stafford. No. I get 3 or I get 4 for Deshaun Watson. That's how I would treat this. Now, they want to keep it respectable because they don't want to scare people off. They don't want to scare teams off. So they're keeping a number at a mod. But to me, that's where you start. That's where you start the deal. If you're smart in negotiations, you start way higher than where you ultimately want to be. You don't start at what you think will get the deal done. If you're the Texans, you put this astronomical number because, hey, they can only say no, right? Because you don't know what someone's willing to pay. If you tell them all you got to do is pay 2 1s, 2 2s, and 2 defensive starters, then that's all they're going to pay. Something is only worth what someone is willing to pay. You got to make them pay more. If they're willing to settle, then they're dummies. And look, the Texans have been dummies before, but that was the old organization and administration. I'm going to give Nick Caserio and the rest of these guys an opportunity to prove that they're not dummies, that they're not Bill O'Brien, that they're not just going to settle. If, in fact, they have to trade Deshaun Watson. I still surmise that they won't. And we'll have another conversation another day about where the leverage is, because a lot of people seem to not think that the Texans have leverage here, and they do. However, someone brought up a great point, and we'll talk about that on a podcast to be named later. However, if I'm the Texans, there's no way I'm taking 2 1s, 2 2s, and 2 defensive starters. That's not enough for Deshaun Watson. You're selling yourself short. Not after what the Lions just fetched for Matthew Stafford. To me, there should be a direct correlation. Hey, I'm not saying it, and everybody's different, and the Rams were willing to pay more than anybody else was. Good. Let's see if somebody's willing to pay. I remember Josina Anderson's tweet, and it said that the Lions were in a situation where a Matthew Stafford deal was imminent. They were going to trade him, but they're trying to hold out to see if there was some dummy out there willing to overpay. That was the tweet. And I quickly responded to that because my Washington football team was in the mix. And if this was the old regime, they would have been dummies. And I tweeted out, goal, don't be those dummies. Or don't be that dummy that overpays. Don't be that guy. Don't be that team. We don't have to do anything here. Don't be that team. If I'm the Texans, I'm looking for that team. To me, it's like the water boy at the very end. When they're looking for that onside kick and the kicker's looking down the list and looking at all those players and he's looking and he finds the one guy shivering. He says, oh yeah, there's my bitch. That's what I'd be doing if I'm the Texans. I'm looking at all these teams that are interested and I'm trying to find out which one is the most desperate. Where's the team that's willing to give me 4 first-round picks? Where's the team that's willing to give me 3 1s, 3 2s, a 3, and a defensive starter? Where's that team? That's what I'm looking for. And somebody's out there. I think it's Carolina. Somebody's out there willing to overpay so that they can make sure that they win this auction. And if I'm the Texans, that's what I'm out to get. That's what I'm after. I'm not looking to just settle for 2 1s, 2 2s. Like, no, this isn't a, hey, let's be nice. Let's not overcharge here. Let's not price gouge. No, this is your one shot. You don't get to do this again. You don't even want to do this. If for no other reason, I don't want to do this, so you got to pay because I don't want to do this. I don't want to trade Deshaun Watson. I had no intentions when I signed him to this extension last year. I had no intentions. I knew that our cap situation was shit. I knew our draft capital situation was to hell in a handbasket. I knew all those things when I signed him to the extension last year. I knew he was going to be a part of the fix. He wasn't a part of the problem. He was a part of the solution. So I don't want to do this. But if I have to, you got to pay for it. Somebody's got to pay because I'm doing something that I don't want to do. So I'm going to make it hell on you. This isn't one of those situations where you go, well, I don't want to move the needle so far that the next time a team comes around and has to do one of these deals, they're going to look at the Deshaun. To hell with that. That's not my problem. It's not my problem. Just like when a player gets paid, they're trying to move the needle up. They want the next guy to make an inordinate amount of money because it's good for the next guy. They're out to help each other. But in that short term, they're really trying to help themselves. They're not worried about moving the needle along for the next safety that comes along. When Landon Collins signed his deal, he wasn't thinking about, well, if I get, $18 million a year or $16 million a year, that's going to allow Tyrann Mathieu and Earl Thomas to get 16 as well. I'm helping my fellow man. To hell with them. He was worried about himself getting the best deal he could get. But in the process, you are helping your fellow man. The Texans are kind of doing it in reverse if they take a deal like this. Like, oh, I don't want the league to think that you gotta, overpay for one of these guys. I don't want this situation to go out of control. Because they think, these owners think like that. These owners think like that. Where I don't want to overpay for a coach because I don't want the next coach that we got to go woo from the collegiate ranks to think, hey, this is the going price. This is what you paid Matt Rule. This is what I should get. Well, that's why Carolina doesn't give a shit. Their ownership doesn't care. David Tepper doesn't give a shit about what the NFL norms are. He wants to win, and he wants to win now. And I think you can get a team like Carolina or the Jets, who don't know anything about winning in the last decade. I think you can get one of those teams to be like, you know what? Yeah, I'll do that. Sounds better than the alternative of just trying to wait to see if we can get a Deshaun Watson. Why the hell not? I'm not saying. I'm just saying. If I'm the Texans, the Stafford deal didn't scare teams. I don't think, Sean Hawk, if you're out there. excuse me, I don't think it scared teams away. It should make them a little leery of what the price might be now. But if the Texans are still out here singing that for 2 1s, 2 2s, and 2 defensive starter song, then you're not scared at all. And maybe that's why they're still singing that same tune, if in fact they're singing that tune at all. Maybe that's why they're still singing it, because they don't want to scare off potential suitors. You want to get somebody invested first. If it's too rich for their blood before they even get invested, then they're out. You got to suck them in first. Make them feel a part of the race, like they got a legitimate chance, and then maybe you get them to do something irrational. But you got to get them in first. You got to suck them in and make them feel a part of this race. So, I don't know. We'll see. But I do have a couple super chats before we get out of here. And so I do want to go ahead and take that, but that'll do it for garbage time. Let's get to a few of these super chats so I can get out of here and let you guys go about your day. Got one here from Calvin Krim. Thank you for the super chat, Calvin Krim. Greatly appreciate you. My man Calvin writes, "Hey Lou, if Washington wants to move up in the draft to grab a QB, how far up could they realistically go packaging up 2 first-rounders? Love your show." It just all depends. You'd have to go and pull up the old Jimmy Johnson draft point system chart. I'm going to pull it up for you real quick, and we can talk about that. Let's get the draft value chart up, and we'll take a look at this thing and see what Washington's first-round pick of 19 is worth this year. So Washington's pick this year is worth 875 points. So theoretically speaking, if you wanted to get up to, say, you said 2 first-rounders, so that would mean this year's first-rounder and next year's. Let's just assume that a first-round pick is worth 1,200 points. Let's just throw that out there. Let's go with 1,000. What the hell? 1,000 is a nice round number. Let's just say, because we don't know the value of that pick, because we don't know where that team's going to fall next year. Let's just assume a first-round pick is worth 1,000 points. Washington would then have 1,875 points to operate with. And again, context is everything. If you're coming up to select a quarterback, forget about the draft chart. That team's going to try to gouge you. I mean, they're going to absolutely try to force you to give it up because they know what you're coming up to get. It's a little bit different when it's a receiver or it's a cornerback or a linebacker. They're not going to hurt you as bad because you may be desperate, but you're not that desperate. For a quarterback, they know this is big stuff. Like, you really love this guy, and I'm allowing you to come up and get him. You're going to have to compensate me for that. So 1,875 points is good enough to get you all the way up to number 4 at Atlanta. Anything south of that, you can get up to the, wherever you need to go. So if you give them 19 this year and a first rounder next year, you can probably get as high as from 4 all the way to where Washington is in the draft. Now, obviously, it's not going to take, as you get further down the list, it's not going to take 2 first rounders. But if we were just packaging up, and that was your scenario, 2 first round picks, you'd be able to get up to number 4. 2 first rounders at where Washington isn't good enough to get up to 3, 2, or 1. You're in a totally different stratosphere when you start talking about the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st pick. But you can get to number 4. That's 1,800 points at number 4. So technically speaking, if Atlanta was willing to move back to 19, you could get to number 4. Atlanta's not looking to do that. But you could get to Cincinnati at 5. And to me, that's where the real draft begins. I don't think anybody in the top 4 is moving anywhere. Not a single soul. Maybe Miami. You could coax them out of number 3. But I think they want to draft the best, fill in the blank, whether it's receiver or this or that. They want to draft the best available in the draft because the first 2 picks are going to be quarterbacks. They know that. So they're going to have the best of whatever else is left at every other position. They get to pop the top. So Miami's not coming out of 3, And Atlanta's not coming out of 4. I think where you could see some movement is 5, 6, 7. I don't think Cincinnati's leaving 5 because they need to protect Joe Burrow. So they want to take potentially the first tackle off the board. If at all possible, they get the pick of the litter of all the tackles. They need to protect Joe Burrow. We saw what happened to him last year. They can't afford to not start to protect him. So I don't know if Cincinnati's willing to move out of 5, but then you get to 6 and 7. That's where things get interesting. Philadelphia at 6, Detroit at number 7, because you got to get in front of Carolina if you want a quarterback. That's, again, dominoes could fall before the draft and Carolina could already have somebody. But if we're just going off of the assumption that they don't have a quarterback, they want someone, you've got to assume that you got to get in front of Carolina at 8 to get a quarterback. And maybe the new assumption needs to be, hey, you probably got to get in front of Detroit at 7 just to be safe. Because we don't know what the hell the Lions are doing at 7. They're telling everybody, oh, we got our guy, while they're trying to throw everybody off the trail. And all the while, they're out here scouting quarterbacks, and they're going to take a guy at 7. That could be the case. So, in your scenario, you package up 2 first rounders. You can get probably as high as number 4 if you wanted to. You can't get any higher than that, though. You would have to add more in the mix. And if I'm the Falcons at number 4 and I know you're coming up for a quarterback, I'm probably going to ask you for more than just this year's first, next year's first. It might be next year's first and next year's 3rd or 4th, something like that. But thank you for the super chat, Calvin Krim. You see where I'm going with that. Protect Sports. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my man. Protect Sports writes, Goff got dumped like cheating an ex-girlfriend. It's amazing how he went from a Super Bowl caliber quarterback just 3 years ago to a guy that they couldn't wait to get rid of. I mean, wow. Life comes at you fast, man. It really, really does. If you're Jared Goff. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the North writes, I was talking crazy when I said 5 firsts for Watson. Getting a few years worth of high draft picks and a few good players is better for a quick rebuild. Yeah, you were tripping when you said 5. You was like, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Nobody else wants to say it. It's the unthinkable. I'm going to just say it. They're going to get 5. I'm like, nah, that's a lot. Like, you're talking about a half decade worth of first round picks. Not too many teams are going to, I don't think any team is going to sign up for that. That's too much for Deshaun Watson. Yeah, he's a hell of a player, but again, I've talked about this. You got to draw the line somewhere. And 5 first round picks, you got to draw the line. Because you're losing the ability to get a guy under contract for 5 years when you do that. When you give up a first round pick, when you don't select a guy in the first round, you're losing the ability to get cheap labor on an elite football player for 5 years. Because you could get lucky in the 2nd or the 3rd or the 4th and get a guy that's going to be a pillar for your football team. But that's 4-year contract. He's looking, after the 3rd year, he's looking for new money. He doesn't even want to play out that last year of his deal. You don't want him to get to that last year of his deal. So essentially, you're only getting 3 years of service before you got to re-up that guy. Like after next year, Terry McLaurin is going to want a new deal. And if you're Washington, you want to do a new deal with Terry McLaurin after his 3rd season. You don't want him to get to that 4th year and close to free agency. So when you don't have a first round pick, you lose the ability to control a player for 5 years. That's big. That's why teams trade back into the end of the first round to get a quarterback like a Lamar Jackson, because you want that guy under contract with that 5th year option if necessary. You want to stretch that thing out as long as possible. That's why you see teams willing to move out of the first round and other teams dying to get back in, because you want to have that opportunity to keep that guy for 5 years if need be. Like in the case of a Montez Sweat, if Washington doesn't think they can re-sign Montez Sweat, that extra 5th year is great, because if they know in their mind, we can't afford to sign him and Chase. And I don't think they're going to be able to. Let's be honest with each other. Both of those are $100 million contracts when you're talking defensive ends. So in their mind, at least they're going to get that extra year. If they know they're not going to be able to re-sign Montez, and hell, they could even franchise tag him. If they think they're really close, they could franchise tag him for 1 additional year, and that's 6 years. And then they say, okay, we got all we could get out of Montez. He'll have to get his money somewhere else. We got to pay Chase Young now. At least you have that opportunity to do that. When you don't have a first round pick, you don't have that opportunity. Do you know how tough it is to maneuver around when you don't have that 5th-year option on a guy that's supposed to be one of your better players? It's tough. It really is. So nobody's giving up 5 first-round picks. I don't think anybody's giving up 4. But 3 is really doable. And if you push the envelope far enough, maybe you'll get a dummy to give you 4. Maybe. But I think they'd be more content with 3 first-rounders, 2 seconds, and 2 defensive starters. That, to me, is a great haul for Deshaun Watson. It makes a ton of sense. I don't want to pay that. I wouldn't pay that. But if someone did, I understand. I get it. But if I'm the Texans, I'm not making it easy on you. Like, I heard that if they were to proceed with the Jets, they want Quinnen Williams. The Jets are like, you can't have Quinnen Williams, man. Well, that's the kind of player that they're looking for. That's exactly what they want, which is why I keep saying if you're Washington, they're going to want Montez Sweat. You're not giving them Chase Young. So they're going to I know you ain't giving us Chase Young. We're not even going to ask for him. That's like somebody calling us 6 years ago and asking us for J.J. Watt. We wouldn't have even, we'd have laughed him off the phone and then hung up. So we're not even going to ask you for Chase Young, but we are going to ask you for Montez Sweat. I'm going to laugh you off the phone and I'm still going to hang up on you. Okay? You're not getting Montez Sweat. If they're doing business with the 49ers, they're not going to just say, hey, all right, we'll take your linebacker. He's pretty damn good. The linebacker from BYU. I like him a lot. No, they're not going to take him. They're saying, we want him, and I want Nick Bosa. The 49ers are like, whoa, wait a minute. What? Do you know what we're talking about here? We're talking about 25-year-old Deshaun Watson. You heard what I said. I want your linebacker, and I want Nick Bosa. That's why I said I got to draw the line somewhere. But you're right. First and seconds, they are the way to a quick rebuild. If you want to be greedy and get a bunch of firsts, it's a slower process because you're not getting as many guys. If you're getting 4 guys every year in the first and second round, so 2 in the first, 2 in the second, for the next 3 years, next 2 years, that's how you fast track this thing. If you're getting 4 guys in the first 2 rounds, think about that. 2 elite players in the first round and then 2 secondary elite players in the second round. If you hit on all of those guys 3 years in a row, and let's just say you get 3 1s and 2 2s. So that means you would have, in aggregate, if you hit, you would have 4 guys in the first and second round, 4 more guys the next year in the first and second round. That's 8. And then you would have 10, because you have 2 more in the first round the next year. 10 players that you're hoping are home runs for you in a 3-year stretch. Not to mention whatever else you do in the draft. That's how you rebuild quickly. Now, if you want to go the greedy route and you just want a bunch of first round picks, it's just 1 guy. Now, you get a pick too, so it's 2 guys, but it's not the same as, 2 2s and 2 1s. You would still get your guy plus their guy, and then you would have your second round pick. So it's 3, but it's not 4. It's not after 2 years, it's not 8, it's just 6. It's different. So there's a lot to talk about. It's a lot to consider, but I tell you what, man, it's fascinating stuff regardless. Anyway, that's going to do it. That is it for me today on the Louie T Network podcast. Fred Warner, thank you. That's the name of the linebacker, Fred Warner. That's my guy. I always forget his name, but I love him as a football player. I remember telling Washington fans 2 years ago, because everybody's been on Fred Warner's nutsack this year. I was talking about Fred Warner 2 years ago. I was like, man, this guy's a beast. This guy's a stud. I told Washington fans, I want a Fred Warner, man. That's the kind of linebacker we need. That's the kind of player the Texans would be looking to take from you. Now, I think Fred is getting up there. He wasn't a first-round pick. He's getting up there towards the end of his rookie contract. They're looking for guys with 2-3 years left on their rookie deals. That's the kind of guys they're looking for. They're not looking for a guy with an expiring contract. I think Fred might be going into the final year of his rookie contract, if I'm not mistaken. But in any event, I tell you what, this offseason is going to be one hell of a ride. And I am along for every twist and turn of it. And I will drag you guys along with me as well. So With that said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here one last time. If you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And, of course, hit the like button, guys. 190 of you out there still, only 70 likes. Let's get this thing up to 100 before we close the show. I am begging you. Hit the like button if you haven't already done it. That said, I'm out of here. Enjoy the rest of your Monday evening. We'll come back, jump on this pod again on Wednesday afternoon. We'll open up the floor for you guys. It'll be social media maneuver, so get your questions ready. And we'll start to really turn our attention on Wednesday to Super Bowl 55. It's going to be a dandy. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. You guys take care. This has been the Louie T Network podcast. Adios.
Louie.